So we're one day out here from the mini set hitting, which means, yes, more card reveals came our way, like this legendary Arc Druid NARALEX. He's a 3-mana 3/3. As we thought, he has something to do with waking up. The artwork sure makes him look like he's either waking up or God knows what else. He's dormant for 2 turns. While dormant, he adds a dream card to your hand at the end of your turn. So a little bit of like a baby Ysera of old almost. Old Ysera, you'd plop it down, get a dream card, wait a turn, get a dream card, etc. NARALEX are getting that same payoff as Ysera, generating a little bit of value, but only at a 3-mana minion. Now, of course, new Ysera just gives you 5 dream cards right away. The dream cards are a little bit weaker than they used to be, to make up for the fact that you're getting 5 guaranteed instead of just 1 guarantee like with the old Ysera, but still pretty solid cards. And with this one, you're presumably getting 2. And I guess theoretically, if you made this dormant again with like Maiev or something, it's possible to get more, but generally your expected results should be 2 dream cards, making it a cheap old Ysera. Now, that said, I have to say, like, I'm a little like disappointed by this card almost. It definitely fits the character like we expected it to be, kind of like dormant or waking up or something, but it just doesn't feel quite as like big, or you know, the payoff's not as rewarding or new or grandiose. It's sort of rehashing old dream cards. So there's a part of me here that's disappointed by that. I mean, it's fitting and flavorful and all that stuff. I just kind of wish it were a little bit more for one reason or another. My expectations, I guess, were a bit higher. From a power level standpoint, you know, it's kind of crazy because it's in a lot of ways better than old Ysera, right? Of course, Ysera was a big body, but you also had to spend 9 mana. And when NARALEX, you don't. You're getting a couple dream cards out of it, where with Ysera, you'd usually only get 1. So, you know, better than a card that used to be good back in the day. That said, old Ysera hasn't been good for a very, very long time. And I'm not actually sure Archer NARALEX is going to be worth it either, just because, you know, sometimes you get 2 nightmares and you're behind in the game and you were kind of hoping for like Ysera Awakens if you're a control deck. If you're an aggro deck, it's like, wow, can I really play a 3-mana non-tempo card and then end up with 2 Ysera Awakens when I would maybe be excited to have a couple nightmares? But the inconsistency, the randomness of the result here, despite being in a limited pool, still very much makes NARALEX an unreliable tool for certain kinds of archetypes. So I think a control deck could still, you know, plop this down and be happy that they're just getting 2 resources back and some eventual tempo out of this body. A class like Priest is probably fine doing that. That consistency may mean you just run other cards where you know what you're going to get. For instance, I think Venomous Scorpion's like way better than Arc Druid NARALEX. It's got an immediate board impact. It's annoying to push through, so it's a high friction card on trades on board because of that poisonous, and you're getting to pick a resource so it can fit your deck or the game situation better, whereas this is totally random. So you don't cut Venomous Scorpion for this new legendary. That means it might be kind of hard to play and actually a rather weak card. So next up here, we can take a look at the Adventurer tokens. These are going to be involved in the next few cards that we talk about. Now, I was getting some flack for not reviewing a few of these cards previously. Everybody kept saying there's 5 adventurers and they do these exact things. No, there aren't 5. There are 8, it turns out. So I'm glad I waited and had the foresight that there might be some changes here. I don't know why the 5 number was so universally accepted, but they are just base keywords still for these 8 adventurers. So kind of like lackeys, but, you know, notably weaker effects and not these like, you know, value generating battle cries and 2-mana 2/2s instead of 1-mana 1/1s. We got Divine Shield, Taunt, Rush, Wind Fury, Stealth, Poisonous, Spell Damage, and Lifesteal. And you got cards that are going to generate these. You know, just speaking in a vacuum, I think like probably the Rush, Divine Shield, and Stealth minions are the most interesting to me. I think those have like the most playability, like the Divine Shield sticky, the Stealth, you know, some damage output. Rush takes good trades. Oh, Spell Damage is good too. Spell Damage is useful. I mean, it's just a Kobold Geomancer, but when that's a bonus or a freebie, that might be decent. I mean, Taunt's fine to throw down as well. The Wind Fury seems pretty unreliable, right? Like that's just going to die pretty often. Poisonous as well. Just gets, you know, backstabbed and nothing really happens or whatever. And Lifesteal tends to be that way as well. So without some kind of immediate upside that the other cards have, or that stickiness or utility, basically, I think those go notably less far. That said, let's take a look at one of the cards. Meeting Stone. It's a new neutral 1 mana 0/2. And at the end of your turn, it adds a 2/2 adventurer with a random bonus effect to your hand. So, consistent curve setup here. Basically, you play this, and you have a turn to play. Maybe not always the best turn to play, because a lot of these aren't that great just on curve. Not even like 2-3 stat lines, but you've got a curve, and if your Meeting Stone sticks, you're generating some board presence in the early game. So this is kind of like an evil totem almost in the world of generating a lackey in the old days in Shaman. But again, notably worse. I think these adventurers just aren't nearly as good as lackeys. I think the battle cries and the upsides on lackeys were way higher. They could just chain into all kinds of resources. And these cards are very much capped on making, a small to maybe sometimes moderate board impact for their cost. And overall, I think a pretty minimal impact on the game. Just they don't really go that far. It's a 2/2 rush minion. It's like it trades into a treant or something. It's not like it's gonna make huge impacts. I mean, clearly there's upsides with priest or something in apotheosis, the rush minion, great, but you could just run a rush minion as well, right? There's other cards you could run instead of Meeting Stone and some of these other alternatives. So for me, I don't think that like curve consistency here is necessarily worth it, because again, it's inconsistent. You don't know what minion you're going to get. It may not fit your plan or deck style all that well. If you knew you're always going to get like Divine Shield and have a really sticky 2-drop, like sure, you might make a case for this, but sometimes you're going to get spell damage in a deck that doesn't have spells, lifesteal when you care more about aggro. Those sorts of downsides are significant for cards like Meeting Stone, because you're not getting the stat pressure on this card itself. But, it is annoying to deal with. If your opponent definitely doesn't want to let it go out of control, even if you are spending 2 mana on not the most exciting minions, it's still a lot of value added up over time. So, it's okay, but it's just not that great. So next appears a Warlock spell, Final Gasp, 1 mana shadow spell. It deals 1 damage to a minion. If that minion dies, it summons a 2/2 adventure with a random bonus effect. So another way to get an adventurer into play here. And this is kind of like a Mortal Coil in its structure, but instead of drawing a card, again, you're just getting a random 2/2. I gotta say, I think in many cases, and for a lot of how Warlock likes to play, I think drawing a card is much more important than filling in a small minion when you're talking about kind of filler mana, as you often are with a 1 mana card. If you're playing like a zoo deck that would care more about 2/2 minions, you maybe aren't as excited to like deal 1 damage to your opponent's stuff for a non-synergistic 2/2 potentially. You might just rather play your own 1 mana minion that's probably more efficient or more immediately synergistic with your deck than what you get from kind of reacting to your opponent's stuff with a deal 1 damage that might be rather inflexible and hard to manipulate to making it a lethal blow. So Mortal Coil fitting into a control deck that's more readily putting minions at lower health totals, happier to kill minions and take those trades, and generating value off of the Mortal Coil, drawing their next piece of removal or big threat, kind of makes more sense to me than using small damage increments to summon small minions on board. So in other words, this is just sort of awkward for how we normally see Warlock fitting, and they've historically had better alternatives that do the same sorts of things. So the unreliability on the adventurer payoff here does not seem worth it for Final Gasp to me to make this a particularly sensible card. So then next up, we have Party Up here for Paladin. This is one we'd seen teased previously. I held on the review, so I won't talk too much about this. Summoning 5 adventurers with bonus effects. So basically, big 2/2 summoner. It kind of feels like treant summoning off of Druid, almost like a Forest Aid or something, where you're just getting a wide board of 2/2s. Of course, these all have some keywords. There are some shenanigans possible, maybe where this is like a 7 mana Malagos. You roll 5 straight spell damage minions, and theoretically you have some damage spell that pays off there. Super unlikely, not a reason to ever play this card, but just kind of funny. It's gonna be a mixed bag usually, right? And again, I think that's just not good enough. Like, a couple rush minions off of it, maybe give some reactivity and stuff, but it's still really expensive. And at the end of the day, it's not that many stats. And you don't know, you might just be a sitting duck after playing a card like this, just getting some poisonous and lifesteal and wind fury. You know, you didn't get rush or taunt, your opponent just whacks you. You spend a ton of mana for a card that's not really that game changing or immediately impactful. So this was slow, and you know, Paladin doesn't have great follows for this. They're building better, wider boards with just like first day of school already. Much cheaper. The minions have, frankly, better upsides in many cases than these adventurers. So I don't know why you'd need a card like Party Up. Paladin just is usually much faster and more efficient than this, and other comparable cards just feel the same. They just do a better thing sooner and for less cost. And then finally, the Devouring Ectoplasm. I think I like this card a little better than most because it doesn't feel like most of its value is tied up into the adventurer summoning. Feels like, you know, there's still some stats on the front side of the Devouring Ectoplasm that make it feel better. Because you are getting a 3/2 here for 3 mana right off the bat, which, you know, not exciting, but still 3 attack minion on turn 3 is relevant. It takes trades on boards pretty efficiently. And then occasionally you get this 2/2 left behind that matters. Sometimes you get a 2/2 you're not as excited about, but it's still just a 2/2. And in total, you know, you're kind of looking at 5/4 in stats for 3 mana. That to me makes more sense than most of these other cards. That said, still not the most exciting stat allocation, and I think it will demand something like a Death Rattle's energy for a card like this to get there. And even just already looking at, say, like Death Rattle Demon Hunter and the options that exist for them as the Death Rattle Tempo deck lately, I don't think this would make the cut as it stands right now. I think the cards they have already fit better than Devouring Ectoplasm. It would be okay in that deck, but it doesn't like carve out a spot for itself immediately as far as I'm concerned. So even in a world where it seems like this card would fit really well, I'm not sure the power level's tuned up quite enough to make the Devouring Ectoplasm worth it. So one of those cards, it's like, it probably feels fine if you get it randomly, feels fine in Arena, but still not quite exciting enough to usually make the cut in a constructed deck. NARALEX is a 3-star card. Meeting Stone is a 2-star card. Final Gasp is a 2-star card. Party Up is a 2-star card. Devouring Ectoplasm is a 3-star card. And there you go. I feel like it's kind of hard on these cards, but to be honest, they've left me a little underwhelmed. You guys know I'm generally pretty positive. I generally get excited about new cards, but I don't know. It feels like Lackey's 2.0, but in other ways, it kind of feels like Lackey 0.5. I don't know, just like less exciting, less complex. NARALEX kind of harkens back to ideas and mechanics we already know. So, and I don't know. I don't see the power levels on these yet. A lot of ways, of course, I hope I'm wrong so I can get more videos and more excitement out of these cards. And, you know, I want everybody to have fun, but share your thoughts. Am I being too hard on these? Is it going to be better than I expect? Or is the inconsistency and unpredictability of the RNG here just too limiting for these cards? Do they need to be tuned up a little bit? I don't know. Share your thoughts in the comments below. Stay tuned, of course, for more card reviews if we can get them throughout the day. I don't know, maybe 1 or 2 more. Probably just 1 more today if I do more reviews today. But anyway, thanks for watching. Look forward to hearing your thoughts. And until next time, game on.